The base of the wall.
Right, that means you came into the old city. So we're on Yutet Amud base 19b. 19, morning, Dr. David. Good to see you, have you back live. 19b4. Okay. Metive. The Gemara is challenging now what Rabbi Yochanan said yesterday. We had Rav Asin named Rabbi Yochanan. Very big chidush, we said yesterday. The Gemara said. The Gemara said that, thank you for the water, Mr. Safri. The Gemara said that Malkut, lashes, is incurred for eating Maisasheni outside Yerushalayim. Welcome back, Nathan. Maisasheni, Malkut is incurred for eating Maisasheni outside Jerusalem. It's only, the lashes is only specifically if the Maisasheni was brought into the old city and subsequently taken out of the old city. But if you did not bring the Maisasheni into the old city, you didn't bring it into Jerusalem, you were living in Petach Tikva, and outside, which is outside of Jerusalem, and you separated the Maisasheni tithe, you separated 10%, you were supposed to take it to the old city to eat it there, to get inspired. Right? Hashem wants Jews to be inspired. Like one of the greatest, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Ma Hashem Shoal Nimach. What does God want from you? Kim Liyira, to fear him, to be in awe of God, and as a result of that, you'll keep all his mitzvot. Right? So one of the things Hashem built into the structure, into the calendar of the Jew, that every first and second and fourth and fifth year, 10% of your produce needs to be taken to Jerusalem and to be eaten there. So you're going to spend time, people spend a lot of time in many places today, right? They go to where people go skiing, where they come from, Utah, where they going skiing, Utah and other places. With all due respect to Utah, but it's not a holy place. It's a place. They go skiing. But Hashem wants people to go ahead and be in a holy city, right, Dr. David? To grow. And therefore, so the Torah says you're supposed to take the Maisasheni to Yerushalayim, you'll eat it there, your family members will eat it there. But if you did not take it to Jerusalem, good morning, Adam, if you did not take the Maisasheni to Jerusalem, you ate it outside Jerusalem, this malkut for the violation of eating outside Jerusalem, but only specifically if the Maisasheni was brought into Jerusalem and then taken out. But if you didn't bring it into Jerusalem, you just ate it outside of Jerusalem, there's no lashes. But Tosfos says there's a violation of a positive commandment, right? Because there's a special commandment that you're supposed to read. If you want to eat it outside Jerusalem, what needs to be done to eat your food outside, eat your Maisasheni outside Jerusalem? What needs to be done is you need to redeem it. And here you didn't redeem it, right? You have all this fruit, all this crop, you want to eat it outside Jerusalem, you can redeem it onto coins, then eat it outside Jerusalem, take the coins to Jerusalem, and buy the food in Jerusalem, eat it there. Okay, that was Rabbi Yochanan's Chidush. Maisasheni never brought it into. That makes it's already holy, correct? But but the Gemara Rabbi Yochanan brings the pasuk, a source that when the Torah, sometimes the Torah could tell us certain things are forbidden. They have to do certain things, and if you don't follow it, you don't get. Not everything is lashes, right? In order to get lashes, the Torah has to tell you don't do something, and generally the don't of the Torah, if you violate it by doing an action, there's lashes. Torah says don't shave with a razor on your beard. You do an action, good morning. If you shave with a razor, someone shaves a razor, they'll get lashes, right? Don't eat pig. If a person eats pig, they'll get lashes if he's warned and there's witnesses. But here, when the Torah tells us the prohibition of don't eat outside Yerushalayim, the Maisasheni, the Torah connects it with coming into Jerusalem. Therefore, that was the chiddush yesterday. The Torah repeats the mitzvah of eating in Jerusalem to connect the dots to teach us that the prohibition of eating Ma'aser Sheni outside of Jerusalem, this particular prohibition is only when it had reached Jerusalem and you took it out. But if it never reached Jerusalem, took it out, this don't of the Torah is not applying over there. You have a different law that says you can't eat it outside Jerusalem, even though you never brought it to Jerusalem. But that law is not a don't of the Torah; it's a do of the Torah. And the do's of the Torah do not incur lashes by not following the do's. A person does not put on tefillin chas v'shalom intentionally, and he's being warned you have to put on your tefillin, doesn't get lashes because it was a violation of a do of the Torah. Torah says to do something and you didn't follow, you didn't do, you just were inactive, you didn't do. That doesn't get lashes. Okay, Nathan, is it clear? Okay, we're on 19b, 4, right column, Meitiv. I'll ask you the following question. We're going to challenge this great chidush of Rabbi Yochanan. Here comes the question. Meitiv. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Kohen she'olta b'yodo te'ena she'tevel. A Kohen, good morning, Jaime.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We are on 19b4 on the right column, Meitiv. You're coming into a good spot over here, Jaime. What do you say? What line? We're about the right column. In the Hebrew, we're on 3 lines from the bottom, Meitiv, on the bottom of 19b. In the English, we are 19b4, right column, Meitiv, where the paragraph begins Meitiv. The Gemara is now going to challenge a ruling of Rabbi Yochanan. Just to bring everybody up to date, review is very important. Rabbi Yochanan said that if a Ma'aser Sheni that you separate, and the 10% that you're supposed to take to Jerusalem in Jerusalem, the Torah says don't eat it outside Jerusalem. The violation of that prohibition of eating out of Jerusalem that will incur lashes is only if you had brought the Ma'aser Sheni into Jerusalem and then took it out. If you never brought it into Jerusalem, you just ate it outside Jerusalem, there is no lashes for eating Ma'aser Sheni outside of Jerusalem without bringing it into you separated it, but you never brought it into Jerusalem. There's no lashes for such a thing. So look at the Gemara's challenge. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Kohen she'alta b'yodo te'ena shel tevel. A Kohen, he had a fig, and the fig was a fig of tevel. What is tevel? The word tevel, tet vez lamed, stands for tov lo. This is no good. Why is it no good? Because you didn't separate any types yet. That means what it means it's no good means it's not permitted for you to eat. Because Netanel 19b4, you tetam base. Because you didn't separate, right? The Torah says we have responsibilities with our food in order to make our food, so to speak, kosher. Our food is not kosher, even though, what do you mean, Rabbi? What's the issue? It's grapes, it's olives. What's not kosher about it? The Torah says what makes it kosher means, the word kosher means like prepared, ready. So it's not kosher unless I give to the Kohen. He has to get something on the deal. The Levi gets something on the deal. Nathan, we got to make sure the Levium are supported. Because you're running the Beit HaMikdash. You have certain jobs in the Beit HaMikdash. Maybe not running it, but you're the gatekeepers. You're doing the singing in the Beit HaMikdash. So you're preoccupied. You're not busy. You're not preoccupied earning that living. So therefore, you have to be supported somehow. So therefore, the Torah says we have to give the Levium. So in order for the food to be prepared to be kosher, morning Simon, to eat the food, certain types have to be removed first. And only after you remove the types, you separate the types, Truma, the Maaser, then you're ready. Now the food is ready to be eaten. The Levi is the Maaser Rishon. Every year of the 7-year cycle, the first 6 years, after you give the Kohen gets his thing first. The Kohen gets around 2%. The average guy gives the Kohen 2%. And after you give 2% to the Kohen, 10% is given to the Levi. The Levi is getting 10%. Now we spoke out yesterday, there are certain types and truma that's minatorah, and certain that are rabbinic. The psukim, good morning, Mr. Haber. Good morning, morning, Mr. Haber. The pasuk talks about grain, taking from the grains, which would mean the 5 grains, the wheat, barley, the oat, the spelt, and the rye. You have to give truma ma'aseh. The Torah also talks about your wine and your oil. You have to give ma'aseh and truma. And there's a major discussion about other fruits. Are all fruits biblical except vegetables are rabbinic, or just the seven fruits of Israel biblical, or only the 2, or only the olives and the grapes? So that's a major discussion we spoke about yesterday. Now today we're talking about, and yesterday also we spoke about, you have to be careful when you're buying more products from Israel that don't have supervision, because that's a big problem, because what they export. We spoke about the Jaffa oranges, we spoke about, and there's a whole listing that we read of products that come from Israel that are on the market that we have to be aware of, people should be aware of, because when they export from Israel, they don't separate the truma and the ma'aseh. The food that's grown in Israel needs to be, even though it comes outside of Israel, they export outside of Israel, truma and ma'aseh needs to be separated. Therefore, people, if you go to the supermarket and it says product of Israel, it's a pepper grown in Israel, or oranges, Jaffa oranges, you got to be careful about. Right, and this year was a different issue, Shemitah, if produce that came to America, which I don't know how much, but that was also an issue. But here, these are other issues that are every year, raw products that come from Israel, you have to be aware, because you can't eat it unless the truma and the ma'aser are separated. Usually, I see in the supermarket, if you look at the box where it came in, usually you don't see the boxes where it comes in. You see them unpacking it as a product of Israel. So that's no, so you know it's not okay because generally, whenever they're exporting any of the raw products, they do not. The government of Israel does not require them to separate the truma and the ma'aseh. So therefore, that's an issue you got to be aware of. Even though, like we spoke about yesterday, therefore there's a proper way to take. Even though the temple does not exist, we still have the mitzvah of this is the whole discussion about the holiness of it's still Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is still Eretz Yisrael. The land of Israel still has holiness even today, even though like all the parts, let's say those parts of Israel that Ezra recaptured, the land is still holy. And that holiness remains. And since that holiness remains, so therefore the food that grew in that land of Israel was holy, has to go ahead as. Yes, so there are laws about how in Israel they're very fluent how they do it. Here also, the people would also have to, learn how to do it right if you would buy the product of Israel. Okay. So now the Gemara says the following: Meitiveh, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Kohen, like we said yesterday, even though there's a special mitzvah to buy from a Jew, you have an opportunity to buy from a Jew, do business with a Jew, support a Jew. There's a special mitzvah supporting Jews, but here you have to know how to do it right, because if you're buying a product from Israel, you have to make sure, you have to find out how to separate the truma and the ma'aser properly. Okay, now we have Rabbi Yossi Omer, Kohen she'alta biyado, 3 lines from the bottom on 19b. 19b4. Kohen she'alta biyado te'ina shel tevel. A Kohen has a fig of tevel. So again, we said tevel stands for what? Tov lo. It's not good. What do you mean it's not good? You didn't nothing was taken off yet. You didn't separate, you can't eat it if you didn't take off the types. And what happened? Oma. And he says this Kohen wants to go ahead and declare which parts he wants to do, so to speak, the declaration, identify which parts will be truma, and the part that's truma he can eat. He's a Kohen. He wants to go ahead and identify which is ma'aser for the Levi. He has to take care of the Levium. He's going to identify which is ma'aser sheni. So listen to what he did. Kohen she'alta biyado te'ina shel tevel. the fig of Tevel came into his hand, and he said, Teina zu, this fig, trumata b'uksa. By the stem, near the stem of this fig, near the stem of the fig, this part should be for the Kohen. And then he says, Ma'aser Rishon b'tzvona. The Ma'aser Rishon, which I need to give to the Levi, should be on the north side of the fig. Ma'aser Sheni l'droma. And the Ma'aser Sheni that I need to take to Jerusalem should be on the south side of the fig. Now, why are you taking off Ma'aser Sheni? Because V'hi Shnat Ma'aser. And this is the year of Ma'aser. Not every Ma'aser Sheni. This is the year of Ma'aser Sheni. Not every year is the year of Ma'aser Sheni. In the cycle, year 1 and 2 and 4 and 5 is the year of Ma'aser Sheni that you take separate 10%, you bring it and you eat it in Yerushalayim. We have families in Yerushalayim. Or it's the 3rd year and the 6th year of the cycle, and he says, "O Ma'aser ani behu b'gvulin." He says that I want this to be for the poor person, because there's 10%, the 3rd year of the cycle and the 6th year of the cycle, 10% of the crop goes to the poor. 3rd and 6th year. And he says, I want it to be for the poor, and where is he? And he's outside Yerushalayim, because that would be the case, because that does not need to be, that's not a special law of eating in Yerushalayim. So we have the case. So here we have the case. Let's focus in on case 1. He's in Yerushalayim, okay, and he identifies which part is Truma. He identifies which part is for the Levi, and he identifies which part he needs to take. He's in Yerushalayim. That's Ma'aser Sheni, that he needs to eat in Yerushalayim. But what's the problem? Achla, he ate the fig. So now what's the problem if he ate the fig? He's a Kohen. So the Kohen, he's allowed to eat the Truma part of the fig, right? And by the way, every part of the fig, everything that's left over after all the types belongs to him. It's his fig. He can eat all of that. But the issue here is he had designated some of it for the Levi. He ate the Levi's part. But that's stealing. There's no lashes for stealing. Stealing is, what's the prohibition for stealing? What's the punishment? Pay it back. He's not going to get lashes for the stealing part. The part that's truma, he's allowed to eat. He's the Kohen. He can eat it for himself. But the part that Ma'aser Sheni is supposed to be eating in Yerushalayim, he's in Jerusalem. He ate it in Jerusalem. So he didn't do that. He did right. But what did he do wrong? This is what he did wrong. Because the 10% that you designate for the Levi, that goes to the Levi needs to give 10% of his earnings to the Kohen. Is that clear? 10% of the Ma'aser Rishon that's given to the Levi gets his earnings. The Levi still can't eat his food until the Levi does something. It's also called Tevel, Tov Lo, for the Levi, until the Levi separates 10%, and that needs to go to the Kohen.
They separated beforehand.
I mean, it could, you could separate that part on behalf of the. I would think you could separate that part on behalf of the Levi, but it wasn't done. That part wasn't separated. The Levi, Mr. Haber, is that clear? 10% was designated for the Levi, but nothing, and then he ate it without separating the additional 10% that's within the earnings of the Levi that has to be given to the Kohen. So that means you ate something, and that's called Tevel. So therefore he ate Tevel in that sense. He ate the whole thing. But he even by designating it would be enough. That's considered enough. But the problem is the Kohen did not get his 10% of what was designated for the Levi. Okay? And that was the prohibition that was violated over here. So what does the Gemara say? Now we're on Chaf Amud Aleph, 28. He intentionally, that to get lashes, it's no forgetting. It's intentional with a warning. He was warned, sir, you can't eat this. He said to the Kohen, you're not allowed to eat this, Mr. Cohen, because you did not take 10% off 10% was not separated for the Levi, for the Kohen, from the earnings of the Levi. It's called Trumat Maaseh. Trumat Maaseh is the Truma from the Maaseh of the Levi. That's called Trumat Maaseh. You have to separate Truma from the Maaseh of the Levi. And that was not done here. So therefore, because that wasn't done, and he was warned, and there's a don't of the Torah on this one, so therefore it carries with it the punishment of what? Of lashes. Of course, if he would have separated the 10% from the earnings of the Levi earlier, you're right. And then he did it. That would be a prohibition if you would eat that part that belongs to the Kohen. But here he's a Kohen himself. It wouldn't have been a problem. You see, he wouldn't have had a problem if he would have separated the 10% from the earnings of the Levi, and he's the Kohen. He could have eaten it then. But you know what? He didn't separate it. So lo ke'achad. So this Kohen, for this violation of eating this fig without separating the part that belongs to the Kohen from the Levi's 10%, he gets one set of lashes. V'zar she'achla lo k'shtayim. But if he would be a zar is a stranger. What does a stranger mean? Non-Kohen. If you're a non-Kohen, that means you have no right. You're called a stranger because you have no right to this food, to this food of truma. So if you are a non-Kohen, and we're on Chaf Amud Aleph, 20a on the top. If you are a non-Kohen and you ate this fig, so you also violated a different prohibition of eating truma. Okay, because non-Kohen is not allowed to eat truma. Just like a non-Kohen doesn't go up to and give birkat kohanim, right? You have the Kohen that goes up to birkat kohanim. A non-Kohen cannot eat truma. Truma has a specific group of people that eat truma. Only kohanim. By the way, that's right. Truma food is cheaper than regular food because when you have a limited market of people of customer base, because the customer base of truma is only for kohanim, so its value is cheaper than the average food because average food could be eaten by a much greater population. So if you eat the truma and you're not a kohen, then there's an additional violation, an additional set of lashes for violating a different prohibition of the Torah of a non-Kohen eating truma. Okay, so that's what the Gemara says. The Levi is given 10%. We say the Levi from his earnings, whatever you the owner of the food, separate 10%. You give to the Levi. First, you give to the Kohen. The average guy gives 2% to the Kohen, and then from that, let's say what you would say. Right here, the Levi has to give 10% from his earnings. No, the Kohen eats that. There's nothing for the Kohen to do. Once the Levi gives 10% to the Kohen eats that. That's it. Just like when you give truma to the Kohen eats that. That's his share. That's his gift. There are 24 gifts of Kahuna. There are 24 gifts that the Kohen. We will buy a pigeon I've been recently. That's a gift of the Kohen. He gets it. He gets those coins, right? Yes. Right. Even he actually even didn't even receive it, but it was food that was designated for the Levi, and it was not, and no truma was separated from the portion that belonged to the Levi. He shouldn't. He should be giving it to the Levi. It was designated for the Levi. You're right. He shouldn't. Not everyone does in life what they're supposed to do in life. He's not supposed to be touching it, but he's touching it. He's eating it. He knows it was, and he was warned. He knows, sir, you designated this for the Levi. No, nothing was separated for the Kohen. You can't eat it. He needed to have separated 10% for the Kohen, and then he could have eaten it himself. And he didn't do that. One area. So what is now? The Gemara says. The Gemara continues. She'ilu. Now, she'ilu b'tchila achla eino loke el achas. If this non-Kohen would have eaten it in the beginning, he would only get one set of lashes. What does that mean in the beginning? That means the following. If, let's say, this fig was owned by a non-Kohen, and he did not identify Truma, he didn't identify Maaser, he didn't call out anything. He didn't say, this part is Truma, this part is Maaser. He said nothing, okay? Then this fig will have a status of Tevel. It's all Tevel, there's no Truma here, right? When does something become Truma? When you designated it as Truma. You said, this part of the fig should be Truma. So now it has a status of Truma. But if I did not identify anything here, I have this fig that's Tevel, that nothing was separated from. So what prohibition rests on this food? I can't eat food that was not, that was no tais and no Truma was taken off. It's not Truma yet. It's not Truma that now kicks in the violation. A non-Kohen can't eat Truma. It's not Truma. Why is it not Truma? I didn't call out anything. I didn't identify it as Truma. So what is this food now? Before I identify anything, it's just Tevel. The prohibition on this food here has one prohibition on this food. It's called Tevel. I can't eat food that were not, right, Simon? If I didn't take off any Truma, any Maaser, I didn't take off, I did nothing with the food, that's called Tevel. So there would have been one set of lashes. For the non-Kohen, if he would have eaten this fig before he identified any of the Truma and the Maaser. But now that he identified something as Truma, and he identified something as what? As Maaser, now kicks in two prohibitions. Because now he ate Truma, and he's not a Kohen. If he's not a Kohen, he gets a violation for that. You know, like the cops, right? I told you when the cops stop you, right? They never stop you. But if the cops, sometimes they give you multiple violations for what just happened. So you're going to get a violation for eating Truma if you're not a Kohen, and you're going to get a violation for eating the Maaser Rishon, the part that was designated for the Levi, that the Truma of that wasn't taken off. Okay. So that is the Gemara. Yes, you can take two more questions. We'll take two more too. Yeah. You're not a Kohen.
Let's say your farm is Jews, and you still have an you're allowed to.
No, you cannot eat it. Why can't you eat it? Because if you're a farmer in Jerusalem, and you have a beautiful farm in Jerusalem, and produce grew in Jerusalem, you still have to give to the separate parts to the. There are certain laws. What's called temporary foods. They discuss why is just one fig subject to. They discuss the question why is one fig subject to all these laws. But we're talking about food that is subject to the laws of Tevel. That means just make believe you would have had a lot of figs, and you picked a lot of figs, right? And you designate, and there was a harvesting. The harvesting season came, and now you pick the figs. So you have a responsibility for that food that grew in your farm in Jerusalem. You have a responsibility to take off Truma. The whole field was in Jerusalem. You harvested the field. Now, at a certain point, there's certain halachot. At a certain point, at what point do you have to start taking off? Is it subject to taking off the Truma? We're going to see this week, or this week and next. We'll see that there's a time period. Let's say you have grain. When you harvest the grain, there's a certain time period that now it's subject to that you have to take off. Right? Let's say you went ahead and you threshed it, you winnowed it. You put the kernels in a pile, you flatten the pile. At that point, let's say you're obligated. Now it's a pile of grain. You have now kicks in. Now there's the obligation to take off maaser, and if you don't, you're in violation. So here we're talking about that it reached the level that it's a finished product. It's subject to take off types, and you didn't. Okay. So the Gemara says the following. Now, it's a beautiful story about the fig, right? We got a nice story about the fig. But what does that fig story have to do with us? Now the Gemara is going to connect the dots. We're going to use this as a question on Rabbi Yochanan's statement. Because look what the Gemara says. The reason why the guy gets 2 sets of lashes is because there were 2 violations only. Because he was in Jerusalem. The Breita says, where did this all happen with this fig? It was in Jerusalem. And therefore, since it was in Jerusalem, he identified the Ma'aseh Sheni part, but it needs to be eaten in Jerusalem, and he ate it in Jerusalem. So he ate the whole fig in Jerusalem, and he did not violate eating Ma'aseh Sheni outside Jerusalem because he was in Jerusalem. But what about if he was not in Jerusalem? The implication, the inference is there's 2 sets of lashes because this happened, the case happened. Why did you tell me that it happened in Jerusalem? Why is that an important fact that the eating of the fig took place in Jerusalem? The indication is that if it would not have been in Jerusalem, he would get a 3rd set of lashes. For what violation? For eating the Ma'aseh Sheni outside of what? Jerusalem. Because Ma'aseh Sheni needs to be eaten where in Jerusalem. So the Gemara's question is, but you told me that the only time he gets lashes for eating Ma'aseh Sheni outside of Jerusalem is if that Ma'aseh Sheni was brought into Jerusalem and then came out of Jerusalem. But if you did not ever bring the Ma'aseh Sheni, you stayed in Petach Tikva or Tel Aviv, and you never brought it into Jerusalem, you don't get lashes for eating it outside Jerusalem. But the inference of the Breita is that there would be lashes, because the Breita says the reason why there's no Malkut for eating the Ma'aseh Sheni is because it was inside of Jerusalem, indicating that if it was outside, you would get lashes. But why would he get lashes if it's outside of Jerusalem? As long as he never came into Jerusalem, he would not get lashes for eating it outside of Jerusalem. So the Gemara say that the inference, the Gemara is going to answer that which the inference would indicate you would get lashes, a 3rd set of lashes, if it was outside of Jerusalem. The Gemara is going to answer that that's if you put it in and you took it out. That's going to be step 1 and 2 of the Gemara. So we'll speak out the question, we'll read the question inside the Gemara, and then we'll see the answer. The Gemara says, time of the Ite Yerushalayim, because you're standing in Jerusalem, eating the fig in Jerusalem. But if you're outside of Jerusalem, look at Shalosh, you would get 3 sets of lashes for a 3rd violation, 3rd ticket, because you ate it outside of Jerusalem. Even though you did not come into Jerusalem with the Ma'aseh Sheni, it still seems to indicate the Breita you would still get lashes as long as you're outside of Jerusalem and you're eating Ma'aseh Sheni in Jerusalem. So the Gemara says no. The indication, the inference that would imply that if I would be outside of Jerusalem, I get a 3rd set of lashes, that refers if I would bring it in and bring it out. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says the Aili V'Afki. That inference, which indicates I would get a 3rd set of lashes for eating the fig outside of Jerusalem, eating the Ma'aseh Sheni outside of Jerusalem, that only would be true if what? If I had brought it into Jerusalem, the Ma'aseh Sheni, and then I took it out of Jerusalem, and then I ate it outside of Jerusalem. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, what's the chidush? You don't have to tell me. The Breita has to tell me something novel. The Breita is not going to tell something that I know already. Everybody knows. There's no chidush to tell me that if something came into Jerusalem and came out of Jerusalem, he gets lashes from Ma'aseh Sheni. Everybody would. There's no question about that. The whole question is, would you get lashes for eating Ma'aseh Sheni outside Jerusalem when it never entered Jerusalem? But if it entered Jerusalem and came out, nobody would ever question that. So why do you need to tell me this fact? By the way, 2 sets of lashes if you were in Jerusalem and you ate the fig. But if you would have been outside Jerusalem, it came into Jerusalem and it came out of Jerusalem, then there'll be 3 sets of lashes. What's the chidush? And because there's no chidush, the Gemara wants to say, it has to be by saying Jerusalem, it's telling you, but if you would be outside of Jerusalem, even if you never brought it into Jerusalem, you'll still get lashes. That would be a chidush. So that's what the Gemara says. And that will go against Rabbi Yochanan. That's the challenge of Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara's challenge of Rabbi Yochanan is the Braita, by identifying the eating of the fig in Jerusalem, seems to indicate that if he was out of Jerusalem, he ate it, even though the fig never entered Jerusalem, he would be subject to a third set of lashes for eating Ma'aseh Sheni outside of Jerusalem. And in order to get lashes for eating Ma'aseh Sheni outside of Jerusalem, it does not have to first be brought into Jerusalem first. That's what the Gemara is challenging Rabbi Yochanan at this point.
Then we learned that.
Yeah, because we're going to see Sheni outside Jerusalem. Right. But the fact that we're going to find that there's going to be an opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, so it seems like if the fact is that this dissenting opinion, that there's an opinion that says it has to be brought to Jerusalem, seems to indicate it still would be a novel idea to tell me that you don't need to bring it to Jerusalem in order to get lashes. Good morning, Charles. So the Gemara says, "Ihachi ma'lamim." So the Gemara says, you know what? There is a chidush. You know what the chidush is? The chidush is Kigon the Aili b'Tivlayu. You brought the figs into Jerusalem, but you did not bring the fig into Jerusalem after you had already called out the Ma'aseh Sheni on the fig. You brought the fig to Jerusalem in a state of tevel. You hear what happened here? You brought the fig to Jerusalem before you called out anything on the fig. You didn't identify Truma, you didn't identify Maaseh, you didn't identify Ma'aseh Sheni. And here comes the great chidush. What's the great chidush? That when to get lashes for eating Ma'aseh Sheni outside Yerushalayim, it doesn't mean only that you brought the Ma'aseh Sheni in a state of Ma'aseh Sheni. It was already identified as Ma'aseh Sheni, and then you brought it to Jerusalem, then you took it out of Jerusalem. Even if you did not yet call it Ma'aseh Sheni, but it already was at a stage that you were ready to call it Ma'aseh Sheni. Was ready at a stage that was fit to take off the Ma'aseh Sheni, to call it Ma'aseh Sheni. So if you brought the food into Jerusalem and then you took it out, then you'll be subject to lashes. Even though you haven't designated Ma'aseh Sheni. So that's a big chidush. Meaning to say like this. In general, to get lashes, Ma'aseh Sheni has to be brought into Jerusalem and then subsequently taken out and eaten outside of Jerusalem. So comes this new chidush to say, even if you didn't identify it as Ma'aseh Sheni and bring it in and then bring it out, as long as in Jerusalem, at a point that it was subject that you should designate, we look at it as if the Ma'aseh Sheni was designated, and therefore will be subject to lashes. We should all have Jerusalem back soon in this full state of holiness, and we should be able to have all these questions about Ma'aseh Sheni again. And I want to wish everyone a beautiful, beautiful day, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
And welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome. All the best, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Well, yeah, you hear a lot of stuff going on earlier. Great. Very good. One at a time. Thank you. Any news on Shabbat? Speak if you can get back here, Shabbat cigarette. How many guys? Does the Rebbe say? Yeah, but usually your friend will come if you come. That's how it generally goes, right? Are you going to be in Queens today? Or? Okay. Okay, great. So be in touch. We have 6 guys from YU coming. 6 guys from YU. We got this man coming. Text if you don't mind. Tell him. Thank you. Yeah. We're gonna miss him.